Hello friends, welcome to fresh new episode of Techie Tuesdays. I'm your host SRV Kumar. Techie Tuesdays is a weekly show where I answer your tech and career related queries. So if you like my answers, then please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends, family and colleagues. Now let's get started with today's questions. Today's first question is by Aniruddha. He is asking, what is the difference between Java and .NET? Aniruddha, the very basic difference which make them incomparable is that the one Java is basically a programming language, whereas .NET is a framework for developing different kind of applications. So the main comparison usually happens between the development kits or software development kits of Java and .NET. So when we call about Java software development kit, it's called JDK or Java development kit, and when we call .NET software development kit, it's called as .NET SDK. So the differences or the comparison happens between these two, that is JDK and .NET SDK, rather than Java or C Sharp. Java or .NET, because when we talk about languages, the comparison happens between Java and C Sharp, because both of these are object oriented programming language, and C Sharp came after Java, and it moreover took all the features or most of the features from Java itself. However, the .NET framework is like it supports multiple language. It not only supports it not only supports C Sharp, it also supports F Sharp, it also supports VB.NET. So it supports multiple language, whereas JDK only supports one language, that is Java. Using .NET you can create various type of applications. I have created a couple of videos where I have showcased I have explained that what all kind of applications you can create using .NET. I will give the link of that video in the description of this answer also. And as I said that you can create any kind of application, be it web, be it desktop, be it mobile, or be it IoT application, or be it cloud application, or be it games using .NET. I don't know about many flavors of JDK or like which flavor is used for which kind of development, but as per my last 18 years of industry experience, I can tell you that you can also develop Java is primarily used, or JDKs is primarily used in creating enterprise backend applications. So you can say data access or web services or those kind of things, and I haven't seen much of Java based UI much of Java or JDK used in creating web or desktop or any kind of mobile UI. Of course Java is used in Android development, but now they have also moved to Kotlin, and even Google is now promoting, rather than Kotlin they are promoting Flutter more, because it's used for cross-platform development. So frankly speaking, I won't be able to give you much information about different variations of Java, but as per my particular experience, I can tell you that I haven't seen much use of Java in UI development, be it desktop development or be it web UI development. Whereas .NET is pretty much popular in creating any kind of UI, be it web UI or desktop UI or even mobile UI. In web UI, the popular .NET UI framework is ASP.NET MVC, which is available in regular .NET, which works only on Windows, as well as .NET Core, and now the latest .NET 5 also. Then apart from that, there is Blazor, which is again a web UI framework, and it is used and available as cross-platform web, so you can host a Blazor application on your different type of servers, be it Windows server, be it Linux server, or even in containers. Similarly, if we think about desktop development, .NET has many UI frameworks like WPF, WinForms or UWP, using which you can create desktop applications. Of course, they only run on Windows, but yes, there is Uno platform using which you you can create cross-platform desktop applications using .NET. Then there is Avalonia UI framework, which uses WPF to create cross-platform desktop applications. Back in 90s, Java was more popular in creating backends because you can say that backend operations like writing web services, be it SOAP-based services or be it RESTful services, like to host backend web services, you require a web server, and Java based web servers run very easily on Linux. I think that is another reason of popularity of PHP, because PHP works well with Linux, and like Linux servers are cheaper than Windows servers. So because of that, most of the enterprises, they used to write or develop their backend systems in Java and develop their front-end systems in your either ASP.NET Web Forms or ASP.NET MVC. However, this all changed after the launch of .NET Core. So not exactly after the launch of .NET Core, it all changed after a few years of .NET Core, like when .NET 3.1 and .NET 2.1 became stable. So from .NET 2.1 itself, .NET 2.1 was very stable, and many companies, they started porting their application to .NET 2.1 and .NET 3.1, because .NET 3.1 is the current long time support version, and .NET as .NET supports cross-platform, so you can host it on Linux, containers, as well as Windows. So that is one of the reason that now more and more companies are using for using .NET for creating their backends. But as I said, that my information about this would be biased because I am more interacting towards .NET community and the people who are working in .NET technologies, not with Java people. But technical differences, I already told you that Java is a language and .NET is basically a complete framework, and Java works with JDK, or you can say Java Development Kit, whereas .NET works with various languages like C#, VB.NET or F#. Next question is from Gaurav. He's asking, what is Web API and how does it work? Gaurav, in simple words, Web API or Web Application Programming Interface is a way to transfer data between two different applications. That is the simplest definition of Web API, I can say. So basically, Web APIs are used to transfer data from web to any other application, be it web application or be it other desktop application or be it mobile application. So for example, if you are creating a mobile application and you want to use authentication or you want to save the data of that mobile application, you will require a server, and then you will require a web API which will give you the data from that database to your mobile application. It can't be directly, as most of the databases doesn't have your any programming interface, so it can't be directly done. Even though nowadays many, you can say many wrappers are coming around many databases, like I think Firebase has its own API, so you can use those kind of things, but again it's an API, so it's basically an application programming interface. As I said, that an API is used to transfer data from one application to another application. Now regarding how does it works, there are two types of web APIs, or I can say two types of web APIs currently. One is RESTful APIs and another one is graph based APIs. But at the end of the day, I think I don't know much about graph based API, so I can tell about RESTful APIs, which basically work on regular basic HTTP protocol, that is your get, post, put, delete. So you use basic HTTP you do the basic HTTP operations to call these web methods of the web API to fetch data or to send back data to them. The implementation of Web API is different in different programming languages. However, the utilization of Web API is kind of similar in most all the programming language, that you have to use a HTTP client, or you have to use a HTTP object manipulator kind of thing. Like if I talk about .NET application, we use HTTP client object or HTTP client DLL or dynamic link library, or HTTP client object to connect to a web API and then fetch data from there using our regular HTTP verbs, that is get, post, or put or delete. Next question is by Giri Ganpati. He's asking, how do you keep on top of web development industry news and trends? How do you apply this to your work? Giri, I do that by sensibly utilizing all the social media platforms I know of. Not all, like mostly Twitter, I would say. So here is my 4-step guide on how to be on top of all the web development trends related to your technology and how to implement in your day-to-day work. The first step would be to create a Twitter account and follow the industry expert of your particular industry. So if I talk about my industry, that is .NET world, in .NET I follow Scott Henselman, Dan Roth, Steve Sanderson, David McCarter, and teams account like Visual Studio, .NET Framework team, .NET Foundation team. So I follow all those teams, and they regularly post about what they are doing, and they regularly give me updates, or they regularly post the blog articles links which I utilize in which I read about and I use to know about what is happening in the world of .NET. The second step would be to subscribe to the various technology newsletters like Code Project newsletter, Tech Republic newsletter, Dev.to newsletter. So Dev.to is basically a blogging site where various different developers write articles on various topics of IT industry, be it web development, be it machine learning, anything. Similar thing is about ASP like Code Project also, and Tech Republic also. Then there is C# Corner also. So subscribe to the newsletters of the companies, or the, you can say, various social media channels which work in your technology. The third step would be, of course, to spend at least 1 or 2 hours in going through those articles, sorting them, bookmarking them, reading them, and bookmarking those which you think will be required in future and leaving those which you think won't be required further. So let's say I got an article on new features of .NET 6 Web API or Minimal API. I will bookmark that for future, so that I can tomorrow in future, if I am creating a sample application, or if I am writing a code, or if I am creating a video, I might use that blog article as a reference. And if I see something which is not related to me, I just skip that from the title itself. Like if anything related to machine learning is there, since I'm right now not working on anything related to machine learning, so I skip those articles or I skip those titles. So spend 1 or 2 hours in going through these articles and reading, bookmarking, or skipping those the articles which are related to your technology, or which are related to your career growth. The fourth step would be to use these new features or technologies new features which I know about that technology in any kind of side project which I am developing, or any open source application to which I am contributing. That way, not only I would be learning those topics, I would also be kind of contributing to the community. So I would also be kind of building my personal brand. And as I always promote or ask people to build their personal brand, I think it would be a good choice to implement those new features in your these side project, or in the open source project to which you are contributing. So once you do these these activities, like 1 or 2 hours, you read the article daily, and then spend 1 or 2 hours daily on, or maybe on weekends, on implementing those new things which you are learning, you will of course get many new ideas for solving your current day-to-day job work also. Like if I am reading about design patterns, or if I'm reading about solid principles, if I'm reading about new features of .NET 6. So if in my current application, if that feature is not available, I can or if I see that that feature is being used somewhere but my application is on .NET 5, so moving from .NET 5 to .NET 6 is pretty easy. I can suggest my team to migrate or port their application on .NET 6 when it comes. So that way I like keep myself up to date and utilize whatever I learn from the social media or from these blog articles on my day-to-day work. Next question is from Shubham Jha. He's asking, I am doing web development for 8 months, but I have not done any job yet. Should I do an internship or do the direct job? Shubham, what kind of web development you are doing since 8 months? Which language, which framework? You haven't mentioned all these things. So if you don't have any job and you are already doing the web development since last 8 months, do you have any proof to showcase that yes, you are doing web development from last 8 months? Because sample applications from courses doesn't considered as working on a particular web technology or framework. So if you are doing a course from last 8 months and you have sample application written or exact replica of the sample applications mentioned in that particular course, that will not be considered as an experience. So in any way, I don't think that your 8 months of working on web development will be counted as an experience in your future job application. So you will be considered as a fresher in your future job application. So my suggestion for you would be to apply for both, that is both internship as well as job interviews. And but before applying, check the job description or the internship description, that what kind of things, what kind of technologies they are asking for. So if it matches to the technologies on which you have worked for last 8 months, then go for it. Otherwise don't go for it, especially for internship, because in internship anyway the employer or the company has an assumption that they are hiring someone who doesn't have any knowledge and they will be training that person. So if you are going for internship, read carefully the job description of that internship, that whether that it uses the technology which you have learned in last 8 months or not. Otherwise your last 8 month work will be complete waste. So you can of course apply for job also, but again, as I said, that you will be considered fresher because you don't have any proof that what you have done in last 8 months. Next question is from Samir Thakur. He's asking, is web designing a good career to pursue in 2022? Samir, in my opinion, all fields and all skills are good to pursue provided you are passionate about them. So if you are passionate about web designing and you see design everywhere you go, like if you see a website or if you see a mobile application and you think that I can design this better, I can design this in this way, I can, and you know about the like tools and technologies which can be used for doing those designing, then and you have a creative bent of mind, then of course web designing is a good career to pursue and you can like go ahead and follow that career in 2022. However, if you are not passionate about it and you are just thinking or you are just trying to make your decision based on the analysis or based on the different analytical points, that okay, how many web designer jobs are there in the market, what is the salary and this and that, then of course you will initially you will of course get a job or you will be able to go ahead with that decision, but you won't be able to continue it further if you are not passionate about it, because passion can't be created. So I'm not in design, I'm not good in designing, but with experience I have got an eye about what things can be utilized in an application. But I am not a good I'm not a good web designer, or you can say any kind of designer. I'm more into development and more into architecture side of things. Initially I started as a developer, so and now later on I'm more into completely overall architecture side. But I am doing this, or I grown into this because I am passionate about it. Whenever I see a problem, whenever I know about a problem, the first thing I think about is how I can solve this problem with the help of any web application or mobile application or desktop application. Like what kind of application can solve that problem, and if there is any application available for that or not. So I'm so passionate about development in general. So in similar way, if you are passionate about designing, then of course web designing is a very good career option to go for in 2020. But if you are not passionate about, and you are thinking on the point of salary, and if you are thinking on the point, of course salary is important, but if you are passionate and if you are good in a particular skill, you will of course get good salary. Because currently in market, like good skilled people, there is very shortage of good skilled people. And you can say even recent in all the articles, wherever you see that most of the college graduates are unemployable. So if you are passionate about web designing and you are learning web designing while doing your college courses, then of course it is a good career choice for you. And yes, if you go into web designing, there are options for freelancing also. Like you can create your designs in your free time and you can sell them as themes or like templates or all those things. So yes, in my opinion, if you are really passionate about web designing, then web designing is a very good career choice. Next question is from Hardik. He's asking, can you tell who wrote the code in Visual Studio based on a license? Hardik, it is only possible if that license is associated with a user ID which is there in source control. So if the license is not associated with any ID which is associated with any user of source control, then there is no way to find out that who wrote the code. That is the reason most of the companies use source control, because source control has all the history about who has written the code, who has done the check-in or anything. There is no way to find this out with the help of license, because license is just to identify the features of Visual Studio or features of any tool. So if any ID you are using, there are different licenses for that particular tool. So when we talk about Visual Studio, there are 3 licenses for Visual Studio. One is community license, one is your professional license, and another one is your enterprise license. So these all licenses differ based on company to company. Professional licenses are more for SMEs or small and medium enterprise, and enterprise licenses are primarily for large enterprises who have certain amount, like more than certain amount of turnover. And community licenses are primarily for freelancer or community people like me. I personally use Visual Studio Community Edition for all my community development and all. So you have these licenses are basically for bifurcating the feature, not to identify that who has written the code. So if you want to identify that who has written the code, you have to go through the source control, or probably you can go through the actual source code file properties, that who have who is the Windows user who has created that file. So I think that is the only way to identify it. You can't identify with the help of license. So you can identify with the help of license only if that license is associated with the user. So how it happens is, like in most of the companies use bulk licenses or bulk license keys. So what they do is they when they install the Visual Studio on their machine, they put that key and your Visual Studio is licensed. That is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, the way which you can identify that who has written the code, is you give the license to a Visual Studio like Microsoft ID, and that ID is also used in the source control. So for example, like my name is Ravi and I have got a ID called Ravi Kumar at the rate like outlook.com, and I have got a license on that ID. So I will sign up or sign in, sorry, not sign up, sign in into Visual Studio. There is an option to sign in into that Visual Studio instance, so that what Visual Studio does is, because if you sign in into Visual Studio using Microsoft ID, the whatever settings you have done in that Visual Studio, it will be replicated to any other Visual Studio instance where you sign in with the same ID. So if I sign in with Ravi Kumar at the rate outlook.com, and then that sign in ID or that ID is associated with any version control system you are using, be it Git, be it GitHub, be it TFS. So if it is associated to that version control system, so the entry will go into that version control system. So actually the only way to identify that who has written the code is via the version control system, not by the license of Visual Studio. So these were my answers to your tech and career related queries in this episode of Techie Tuesdays. If you want your questions to be answered in next episode of Techie Tuesdays, you can DM your questions with hashtag Techie Tuesdays on any social media platform. All my social media handles are Techie Rathor. I hope you like my answers, and if you like my answers, then please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends, family and colleagues. So until my next video, take care. Bye bye.